Hi, my name is Isaac Van Dorn. I'm doing this little video for my my application. So I'm gonna go catch Grant here. I already brought him in from our bigger field just to make it a little easier to show you guys how I catch him. He still might be a little stubborn, but we'll see. So maybe I'll be able to get him something to get him a drink, but it looks like he's still gonna be a little stubborn about it. He usually kind of is a little bit. So there we go. He's not being so bad today. So I'll usually like throw the lead rope over just to make sure I have them. Not always essential, but with some horses that like to walk away from me, I'd like to make sure. I come over the top, put a noseband around him, come through, and I always tie him under, so that way should he set back, which hopefully Grant shouldn't be setting back on me, but should he set back, it's easier to undo, I think, when you tie it underneath. That's what I've been told to do. And then when I lead him, I try to never wrap anything around my hands, and Grant's a pretty good listener. He respects my space pretty good and all that stuff, so Grant will make it look easy for me. All right, so then when I go to tie, I always try to do a quick release knot. This lead rope is really long, so I might actually take the halter off when I go to ride him. But I think this one's the bank robbers, but I'm not entirely sure. But I just always try to do a quick release, just in case he should start setting back. It's an easy pull to get him undone. And then come around him, always trying to make sure I'm making contact with him when I go behind the butt. Grab my brushes. My biggest highlights are gonna be where the saddle's actually gonna sit, and in particular, his withers and his girth, where his cinch is gonna be. That way, I'm not rubbing him raw anywhere or anything like that. I might kind of brush off some other areas if he's really muddy or really dirty or something like that, like he's just come and roll around. And for example, today, I think he was just barely eaten before, so I might wipe off some of the hay off of his face. But other than that, that's mostly what I'm getting when I'm brushing him down. Try and stay close to him when I go around him. Same thing on both sides, and always try to go up a little further, you know, try to get more than the area that the saddle's actually going to cover, just to make sure that I'm getting everything. Usually try to go a little further forward. I know a lot of people don't go quite as far forward on the withers as I do, but I just like to double check and make sure that I'm getting everything up there. Especially Grant has some higher withers than a lot of other horses, so I like to make sure that his withers are nice and clean. And then I might also add a little extra padding for him, just because he's starting to get a little older and he does have some pretty high withers. All right, so when I go to throw my pad, I usually try to do everything from the left side, right? That's how most people do it. I like to make sure she's nice and centered. Might already kind of tint her a little bit. Make sure there's a little break in my top pad here underneath my blanket, so I try to make sure that's sitting right on the highest point of his withers to try and release some of that pressure that's going to be on there when the saddle's on. Try to make sure everything's nice and even as it can get. And I'll go grab my saddle. And again, come over to his left side. So try to just make it a nice clean swing up and off. And I'll kind of move it back a little bit. I usually put forward than I need to. Tin up my saddle pad. Again, also just trying to protect his withers. So when push down, it'll push the saddle pad down a little bit, try and tilt it a little bit, make sure she is where I need her. Come over on the same side, do the same thing, make sure my blanket and my pad are sitting nice and even, they'll drop. All of this, my cinches, and then I also just kind of like to throw my breast collar over the top of them, just to make it easier access on the other side. What I'll do oftentimes right now is just double check and make sure that everything is gonna fit him. I know that he's a little bigger than the last horse that I rode. So I was just double checking, making sure everything's gonna fit him real quick. I'm gonna probably bring my breast collar a little bigger for him. He's got a little bit bigger chest than the last horse I was on. And make sure he's sitting where I want. All right, come back around. Do everything up on this side. Underneath, grab that latigo. Or sorry, put the latigo through the cinch once, and then twice. Come back up and through. And I personally like to buckle. I know some people are big fans of the Texas tees, but I like to buckle. When I'm going in, I usually don't like to do it real tight right off the bat. I want to still make sure that I can get fingers all the way down. I should be able to fit 3 fingers all the way around. When I go to actually get on him, I will tighten it up. Usually to where I can still get a few fingers in there, but then it kind of gets a little tighter as I get down towards the center of his belly. And especially with a horse like Grant, who does have bigger withers, I typically don't need to cinch up quite as tight. Back cinch, I like it to be not terribly tight, but snug enough that it's not dangling. Especially since we might actually be doing a little roping tonight, I like to keep it a little tighter. Breast collar, just gonna make sure come through. I have a keeper on this side, which is nice, instead of having to put it through where the cinch goes. And I like to try to make sure she's sitting nice and even on both sides, make sure it's not drooping one way or the other, and that it's sitting above his shoulder here, it's not drooping down too far. But at the same time that it's not so tight that it's choking him. So he should be able to put his head down and move his legs properly without having it choke him. Clip that to the cinch in the middle, and he should be ready to go. I'm just gonna go, okay. And when I go to bridle, I'll usually untie him. I feel like that's a pretty universal rule, just to make sure that he's not gonna sit back or do nothing. He was the last horse that I used for this, so it should already fit him. Usually like to put the reins over first. I'm using my roping reins today. Usually I'm using split reins when I'm actually trail riding, but for roping today, I have my roping reins on. I like to bring it over the top, and then I'll keep my thumb kind of right here on the side, so that way if he's being reluctant, I can grab his mouth open. Thankfully, Grant takes to the bit really easy. I'm trying to make sure it's not gliding along his teeth. I wouldn't want my teeth getting scraped with metal every time I got bridled up either. So I'm trying to do the same for him. Try to make sure where it's sitting, he's got a couple little wrinkles to make sure it's not hitting his front teeth, but not so far up that it's pulling on his mouth too much. Kind of right in that sweet spot. And then for our little chin strap here, I like to make sure she's snug enough that she's not gonna get caught anything, but enough that I should be able to fit like 4 fingers in there. So usually that third notch is about good for him. All right, yep, that should be good. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to actually hop on him. I took my lead rope off, but I'll go to tighten him up just a little bit. Again, making sure I'm not going too terribly tight on him. Don't want to cut him in half, but making sure that, yep, once I get down there, it's feeling nice and tight. If my keeper's getting too long, sometimes I'll double wrap it or something like that, but that should be good just hanging where it's at. Also double check all that good stuff. Yep, so when I go to get on, make sure I have the reins in hand. I'll foot up into here. And a lot of times I'll grab onto the mane to help make sure the saddle doesn't slide, as opposed to the horn. On a horse like him, it shouldn't matter too much if I grab the horn, just to try to make sure that it's not sliding as much as possible. So, out here. Grant's a pretty comfy horse to sit the trot on, but sometimes I'll also find on the day. Thankfully for me, Grant's a pretty comfortable horse to sit the trot on. Grant. The biggest thing I'm looking for when I'm ponying is I'm going to try and not ringtail Grant, get that rope underneath him. I don't think Grant should react too bad to that because he's used to ropes being around him, but I know not all horses are. So if you ever have to pony a kid's horse out there on the trail, don't need that happening. So that's mostly what I'm going to be looking for when I'm ponying a little horse around. But Woody should follow pretty good. He shouldn't be too stubborn.
those kids' horses definitely can be a little stubborn, trying to turn back towards the barn.
Yeah. I'm always trying to watch when he's switching sides. I might even switch hands. Kind of dependent. Keeping him around. Thankfully for me, Woody's about as good as they get. He follows and listens real good. A little slack there. I need him. Alrighty. And then he knows where home is. He's trying to go. All right, and then just for getting off, I'll usually hold it on that side. Usually makes it a little easier. Make sure I'm not getting caught up in it. Me too. I can get underneath.